ABC Pilbara, I'm Kelly Gudgeon. It is 10 minutes past 7 and I'm asking you today what your favourite one-hit wonder songs are. Give me a call on 1300 510 222 or send me a text on 0448 922 604. Right now though, I'm joined by Federal Labor MP and Shadow Minister for Families and Social Services and for Preventing Family Violence, Linda Burney, live in the studio. She's here today to attend the Roebourne First Nations Women's Policy Forum. About 100 women from across the Pilbara have registered for the forum from as far away as Port Hedland, Yandiara and Karajini. It's the second Aboriginal Women's Policy Forum to be held in WA by the Labor Party, following a similar forum in Perth 18 months ago. They will hear from women about what they would like to see happen in the areas of health, education, young people, homelessness and culture and country. And these ideas will form the basis of policy which will be taken to the Labor's National Conference next year. Good morning, Linda.
Good morning, Kelly. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. What are the most pressing issues, in your view, that will be discussed today?
Well, in terms of your introduction, and thank you for that, I'm now the Shadow Minister as well for Indigenous Australians.
Oh, congratulations.
So, obviously, the headline issues in that portfolio are things like constitutional recognition and change. But today, and I attended the first Aboriginal Women's Forum in Perth that Sue Lyons organised some time ago. The issues are very real issues that face people every day in the community. Things like the removal of children, things like the number of people who are in custody, but also the issues that you talked about, health and well-being, homelessness, but particularly keeping culture alive, keeping language alive. And the other thing is just women coming together to make sure that a woman's voice is in policy decisions and making.
How different are the issues between the forum that was held in Perth and the issues that are likely to be raised today?
I think there will be some different issues because obviously the women that attended in Perth, and there were women from regional Western Australia, but I think we'll hear today a lot more of what the issues are on the ground, particularly through the Pilbara, as you set up as far as Port Hedland. I did a road trip through a lot of the Pilbara, the goldfields in Central Australia not so long ago, and one of the huge issues was the availability of clean water in communities. If there's no clean water, you can't have dialysis. And, of course, the health issues around kidney disease are so huge in the Aboriginal community.
I will talk to you about the desert tour in more detail in a minute, but I just wanted to go back to the forum today. Why is it important to hear from women?
It's important to hear from women because the issues from a woman's perspective are seen differently, and we know very much at a local community level, in Indigenous communities, women play such an important role in keeping families together, keeping culture alive, and making sure that there is community safety. So I think that to have a forum where it is only women able to talk freely, able to feel safe is really important for us to hear, and really important in terms of putting in policy that is going to be policy that means something, that is actually the right policy, and hearing from Aboriginal women is incredibly important in that.
And that's what the plan is for what comes from today, isn't it? So what will actually happen with the ideas and the issues that are put forward today?
Well, in Perth, the views that came forward from Aboriginal women at the Perth Forum that we had about 2 years ago certainly form the basis, particularly as you indicated in the introduction, around family violence, family safety. And today will be the same, that what we hear today is not just people coming together for a talk fest. It'll actually formulate, because Malandiri McCarthy's coming over as we speak from Northern Territory, it'll actually formulate a really solid part of what our Indigenous Affairs policy is going forward, but also what our women's policy and women's safety policy is as well.
Now, last time you were here, you mentioned you thought moves for an Aboriginal voice in the Constitution needed some further exploration in the Pilbara. Can you talk about what this might mean?
Well, that's a fantastic question. The really big issue facing, I think, Australia broadly is the outcomes of the Uluru Statement. I think most people would be familiar with that. And obviously we are looking at seeing whether or not there is an appetite within the Parliament and more broadly across the community by way of referendum on whether there should be a First Nations voice advising the Parliament, protected by being enshrined in the Constitution. That's the fundamental issue. Labor believes that that's what should happen. The government believes there should be recognition of Aboriginal people in the Constitution, but not enshrining an Aboriginal voice and Torres Strait Islander voice to the Parliament in the Constitution. So we need to work through those issues. That's not the main topic today, but it's certainly one of the big headline topics, if you like, that we're dealing with in the Parliament.
Yeah, okay. Now, going back to the Western Desert Tour, you have just finished the Western Desert Tour, yeah. So that took you through, as you said, the central region, a lot of the Pilbara and the Goldfields and the Kimberley as well, I believe.
Well, it started off in Broome. I wasn't there for the Broome to Port Hedland section. We went to Port Hedland, places like Newman, Laverton, Warburton, Meekatharra, Leonora, then over to Katajuka and Yalara in Central Australia.
So you mentioned water before. What were some of the other issues?
A lot of the issues were to do with community development, issues that are to do with endemic poverty that you had in the Pilbara, such an incredible mining industry, and what the benefits were for people, not both Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal, whose lives were permanently in the Pilbara. There was also, as I said, Kelly, the really big issue about availability of clean water. That came up more than any other topic that we talked about as we moved through those communities. And of course, there were issues around infrastructure, issues around developing local government and decision-making, things to do with community safety, community development. But every single place we went to a lot of health centres, but every single place we went to, without exception, talked about the lack of clean water, which meant that very often people who had kidney disease had to leave the community and go to, here or Broome or even Perth for dialysis, and very often coming back in a wooden box.
Okay, well, that's very confronting to hear. Yeah.
And I think that, most Australians would be shocked to know that there are communities right throughout this area and a whole range of other places that don't have potable water. So that means that things are more expensive in the stores. It means that sugary drinks are consumed by younger children. That leads to obesity, and all the issues. It's a vicious cycle. Dental issues and issues eventually to do with kidney disease. So it's a vicious cycle, and somehow or other, we've got to break that cycle. We're travelling to the APY lands next week in South Australia, and a number of those communities have overcome this issue by way of capacity to clean water at a local community through desalination plants and a range of other methods. And I'm really interested to see what's happening in other communities, to see if there's applicability in communities where there isn't clean water.
That will be very interesting. Unfortunately, we are out of time.
Oh.
Linda Burney, Shadow Minister for Families and Social Services and for Preventing Family Violence, and now Indigenous Affairs as well.
Yes, and can I just say very quickly that any women that would like to attend the forum in Roebourne today, they can if they haven't registered. It's got to be there by 9:30. And
where's it being held?
At the Nurin Cultural Centre in Rose Street in
Roebourne.
And Roebourne.
Yeah. Okay.
Very welcome.
Excellent. Okay. Linda, just before you go, have you got a favourite one-hit wonder song?
A one-hit wonder? I don't think it's a one-hit wonder, but I do love Emmylou Harris. And I don't know if you've got it, but Red Dirt Girl is one of my favourites.
I'll see if we can find it. Okay.
If not, any Emmylou Harris would be fine.
All right, Linda Burney, thank you for coming in today. It is One Hit Wonder Day, and this one is a classic. It's from the movie Romeo and Juliet. This is Everybody's Free to Wear Sunscreen.
Ladies and gentlemen, if I could offer you only one tip for the future, sunscreen